Everyone loves a good underdog story, whether it be the tale of a small country's struggle against a great empire, or the tale of a boy shackled into slavery and left to fend for himself in a strange land. Welcome to our video on the life of Malik Ambar, the remarkable story of a child of African herdsmen who defied the odds and rose to kingship, fighting a defiant war against the expansion of the mighty Mughal emperors in the heart of central India. Big thank you to Vikings War of Clans for sponsoring this video. The devs have asked us to try out the game and the members of the Kings and Generals team are now hooked. Vikings War of Clans is free to play and the game is inspired by the famous strategy games of the 90s like the Command & Conquer series that we all loved and played. Vikings gives the player a deep strategic experience. To win, you need to combine tactical skill and team play. The game has a great visual style with excellent 3D graphics paired with a fully immersive soundtrack, which will make you feel like you're in the world of Vikings. Everyone will find something they love. Rule your kingdom, build a town, find resources and create an army, or focus on expansion and conquer. For us, the complex team game is the most enticing feature. Help support our channel by downloading Vikings for free, only from our links in the description box, and get the special bonus of 200 gold coins and a protective shield. The man who would become Malik Ambar was born in 1548 in central Ethiopia, with the birth name of Chapu. His people, the Oromo, were relative newcomers in the region, taking advantage of the instability caused by an ongoing war to migrate into the country. Chapu's childhood was a traditional Oromo peaceful pastoralist life. 16th century Ethiopia was a land defined by slavery. While it impacted all communities, Solomonic Christians and Adal Muslims in particular targeted the largely spiritualist Oromos. By 1555, over 12,000 slaves per year were captured and sold in Ethiopia, stripped of their freedom and shipped out to serve elites from Cairo to the heart of Persia. Sure enough, at only 12 years old, Chapu was captured by Arabic traders, becoming a statistic in an epidemic slave trade that spanned across the Indian Ocean. The young boy was put on auction in a slave market in a port on the coast of Yemen. Young, scared and alone, the boy likely wondered if he would ever see his home or family again, while auctioneers peddled him as if he was no different to the coffee beans, musk, ivory and silk on sale in the bazaar. Chapu was quickly sold, eventually ending up in the hands of a merchant named Mir Qasim, who took him to the restored cultural center of Baghdad. Qasim gave his slave a new Arabic name, Ambar. He also taught him how to read, write, and manage the finances of his master's business. After a decade in the heart of the Islamic world, Ambar was taken on a journey with Mir Qasim, who sought greater business ventures in more exotic lands. In 1571, the master and slave reached the west coast of India, a region known as the Deccan. As a young man in his early 20s, Ambar had finally arrived in the place where he would make his mark on history. Much like Ethiopia, the Deccan was a land defined by war, intrigue, and a delicate balance between its various peoples and religions. Politically, the plateau was divided into 5 sultanates, which typically were comprised of a ruling class of Muslim elites presiding over a mainly Hindu Marathi majority. Indo-Turks, Persians, and a smattering of European merchants also added to the land's social fabric. The rulers of this land walked along a dangerous edge. Violent coups were the norm, as sultans often found themselves slain at the hands of their own soldiers or via the work of rival sultanates. To compound matters, a new player had recently emerged in the game, the Mughal Empire. Founded by one Zahir-ud-Din Muhammad Babur, the Turkic dynasty had swept into the subcontinent, destroying the declining Delhi Sultanate in 1526. The Mughals established themselves as an imperial juggernaut in northern India, and licked their chops at the prospect of expanding into the small and divided sultanates to the south. Upon arrival in India, Ambar was once more sold. In the Deccan, Africans were known as Habshis and were commonplace as slave soldiers or free mercenaries. Ambar's new master was the chief minister to the Sultan of Ahmednagar, a man known as Chengiz Khan, a name invoking the conqueror of old. Chengiz had much in common with Ambar. He too was of African origin and had once been enslaved. Since then, he had earned his freedom, and now commanded an army in the name of his lord, Murtaza of the Nizam Shahi dynasty. In meeting Chengiz, Ambar quickly learned that upwards mobility was possible for anyone in the Deccan, even a slave. Ambar began this new chapter of servitude as a soldier in training under his Habshi master. He was resolved to earn himself a higher position in life through determination and grit. He soon distinguished himself from the pack, catching Chengiz's eye with his impressive brawn, quick wit, and thorough education. Chengiz soon decided to make him his personal aide, grooming him for leadership. 3 years later, Ambar's sense of security was shattered once more. Courtiers jealous of Chengiz Khan's power had framed the minister for working against Ahmednagar, inducing the Sultan to have him executed. It was a harsh wake-up call to the reality of Deccanese politics. However, there was a silver lining. Following Chengiz's death, Ambar was legally a free man. After nearly 2 decades, the Oromo was in control of his own destiny. He travelled south to the neighbouring Sultanate of Bijapur and enlisted in the local army. It was during this time that he met Karima, a fellow Habshi. Eventually, Ambar would marry Karima and have 4 children with her. As the Bijapuri ruler passed away, leaving an underage son as his heir, responsibility for the guardianship of the realm fell to the Queen Mother, a woman known as Chand Bibi. This regent proved to be incredibly competent. Well aware of the cutthroat nature of Deccanese politics, she introduced the concept of fidelity to the Sult, which espoused loyalty to the land itself rather than any one dynasty. The Sultana, as she was called, had many admirers. Chief among them was Ambar, who saw her as a role model. In time, Ambar had risen up in the Bijapuri ranks and built a small but dedicated following of mounted warriors, with whom he had likely distinguished himself in various small-scale border skirmishes. His loyalty to Regent Sultana and his effectiveness in battle led to Chand Bibi's young son bestowing upon him the symbolic title of Malik, an Arabic word for chieftain or king. The year was now 1595, and the Mughal Empire had finally turned their attention back to the Deccan after suppressing rebellions in the east. For Emperor Akbar, it was a good time to invade. Ahmednagar was racked by internal strife. The most recent Nizam Shah had died in a border war with neighbouring Bijapur. In the ensuing power vacuum, none other than Chand Bibi laid claim to the throne through her nephew's Nizam Shahi blood. This caused the reigning Ahmednagari chief minister to make the fatal mistake of inviting the Mughals into his realm to protect his power. Sure enough, a mighty imperial host led by Prince Murad Mirza, son of Akbar, descended down on Ahmednagar. Realizing he'd made a deal with the devil, the minister fled the country, and the warrior Sultana seized the mantle of resistance. At Fort Ahmednagar, Chand Bibi met the Mughal army with her own. Donned in full armour and an Islamic veil, she flung herself into battle alongside her men. Ambar had not been idle either. He had long since left Bijapur with his contingent of cavalrymen and joined forces with his Sultana. He and his fighters harassed the Mughal army during the battle, destroying provisions and disrupting supply lines. Exhausted and demoralized after a fruitless siege, the imperial forces soon withdrew. For a scant few years, there was peace in Ahmednagar, with Chand Bibi as regent, but in a climate thick with paranoia, it was not to last. In 599, Bibi met her end in typical Deccani fashion, slain by her own soldiers, who were fueled by a false accusation that she was selling Ahmednagar out to the Mughals. Without the leadership of this iron-willed woman, the Imperials fell upon Ahmednagar once more the next year, easily taking it and capturing Bibi's young puppet nephew.